Welcome to part of my pantry. This is some random stuff. Anyway, a friend gave me some free black-eyed peas, and I'm not much of a legume eater. They give me issues, but it was free food, so I took it, and I'm gonna make a dish that I threw together once with leftover black-eyed peas from a different recipe from the Bob's Burgers Burger Book, because it was really tasty. So I'm gonna make that. Anyway, I cooked some of these black-eyed peas. I soaked them in water first, and then I cooked them for about an hour till they were tender. And now I have a large skillet on medium-low heat, and I got 3 pieces of bacon that I've chopped into little pieces, and I'm going to just render them off. If you want to make a vegetarian or vegan version of this dish, or you don't have bacon, just use like a tablespoon or 2 of oil or butter or whatever, probably oil. And then add smoked paprika if you have it to simulate that smoked flavor. I personally think the bacon is pretty essential for this recipe. Pro tip, if you want your bacon to render faster, cover it. After 3 minutes, it looks like this. And it can still give off plenty more fat, so I'm gonna let it go a little longer. Okay, it's been a couple more minutes, and as you can see, the bacon is not completely rendered. There's still plenty of blobs of fat in there, but it's rendered enough that I'm going to add the onion. This is just half a cup of chopped onion. And again, I invented this recipe sort of out of necessity, there's just random leftover ingredients in my fridge that I have to get rid of. So I think this was probably all the onion I happened to have at the time, but I think it's a good amount. A little bit of salt to help it along. And we're just going to let the onion sweat in the bacon fat for a few minutes until it is translucent, and by then the bacon will have rendered more. Alright, the onions are soft and I can see through them, so I'm going to add the garlic. There was no garlic in my original recipe, shockingly. Maybe I just happened to be out of it at the time, but I thought garlic would be good, so I'm adding that. There's really no herbs and spices in this recipe except salt and pepper. So add any herbs and spices you think would be good, but honestly, as I recall, it's fine with just salt and pepper. Bacon, onions, and garlic have a lot of flavor on their own. Now I've added some canned chopped tomatoes. The original recipe called for fresh cherry or grape tomatoes, but it is not tomato season right now. And I had an open can of tomatoes that I needed to use up anyway, so I'm using canned. I just want to cook this out a little bit until the canned tomato flavor is gone and you're left with tasty tomato flavor. I'm going to add some red pepper flake here. I would do black pepper like the recipe calls for, except I don't have any ground at the moment and I don't feel like grinding any, so red pepper it is. A little more salt. Okay, these canned tomatoes have been cooking out for about 5 minutes. They're looking nice and jammy and cooked, so I'm going to add the greens. I happen to have a bunch of spinach that I need to get rid of because I made palak paneer earlier in the week. So I'm adding spinach, and I'm adding like 2 very, very generous handfuls because it cooks down to nothing. If this were some other green, when I originally made this dish, I made it with radish tops because I had to get rid of those. If it's some other green that takes longer to cook, obviously cook it longer, but spinach takes like a minute. You're watching it wilt before your eyes as I talk. So I am actually going to just go ahead and add my black-eyed peas now. So these are cooked. It's a cup. The original recipe only called for half a cup, but I have extra to get rid of, so I'm doing a whole cup. And, you know, it'll add some more nutrition and more calories to this dish to make it a little more substantial. A little more salt. And we're just going to let this cook through for a few minutes until the black-eyed peas are warm and the spinach is all wilted. I'm just letting the excess water reduce out of it for a couple minutes. And it's basically done when it's a little tiny bit saucy, but it's a very, very thick starchy sauce. It is thick from both the bacon fat and the starch in the black-eyed peas. So you could totally eat it just like this, but as I mentioned, this actually isn't a lot of calories. It's going to be a pretty dang light meal if you eat it by itself. So I like to eat it with some brown rice on the side. You could also totally have it with like, you know, a piece of meat or fish or something. But I like it with brown rice. Anyway, it's incredibly simple and easy and actually quite healthy. And it's a great way of getting rid of free black-eyed peas that were gifted to you. Yeah, I'm surprised by how good this tastes.